Because to some extent, I mean, I've been talking about with you, and I've been seeing you wearing different watches, and I mean, guys, what you're wearing right now in your watch is not as rebellious as what you expect from a rock band, by the way.
No.
But we'll get into that. But I mean, when you buy a watch and you have a personal history, you have a personal story as well, it's always a milestone, it's something related to a tour and an actual concert. Like, how do you decide what are you going to buy, or what defines the purchase or the wish?
I would say it's so many different reasons. Sometimes I've bought a watch to celebrate, like we had a really good tour, and so I'm going to buy myself like a special watch just to commemorate it, if you will. Other times for my birthday, like when I turned 60, I bought an Omega, and Omega was nice enough to give it the watch number with my birth date on the back of the serial number was my birth date. They did that for me, because some of these brands I have relationships with on a personal level, and they were nice enough to do special things like that. But I buy just like what I wear every day. My collection and my love of watches is all over the place. I'll wear really inexpensive watches from like Seiko Sport 5, some of those inexpensive ones, or swatches. Like I've been collecting all the moon swatches. I've got 7 of them so far. We had a lot.
How did you do that?
Well, I have a lot.
I know a guy who knows a guy.
Because I'm clever. No,
when we were in London, he goes, we got to go to the swatch store,
yep,
because he was looking for this thing. I actually just went to IWC and got a replacement for this. The band replaced because it was wearing out, but
yeah, I was trying to get the Tudor. They did a Harrods special with a green bezel of a Tudor Blancpain, but they didn't have it. You have to. I guess you can still order it, they said, but I didn't want to wait a year for it. So, but I was looking to all the
impatient kid.
We were looking for the moon swatches. So what I did, I thought, I'm going to start asking all the fans. We have regular fans that come around from all the different countries.
He's taking advantage now.
So I said to the fans,
no,
hey, do me a favor.
Do it.
Here's the watches. Can you go to your swatch boutique and see if they have anything? So that's how I've acquired all of them.
And what did they get in exchange?
Believe me, they get, what these fans have had, we'll pay for them, but all these fans, they've been getting VIP treatment from the band for their whole career. They get passes, they go to the shows for nothing.
They're very well taken care of.
Let me tell you, Gene and Paul, throughout their whole history, and including now Tommy and I, we've always been really, really nice to the fans and treated them well and give them access to the band, unlike any other band.
Yeah,
I've been in a lot of other bands.
You were in Geneva at the show, well, right outside Geneva, right?
Well, I was at the Palais in Geneva. I was in Paris.
Yes.
So you guys in Paris. So you guys in Belgium. That's where we first met.
Right.
But Eric's right. The culture with KISS and backstage, and we like to do stuff. These days, most bands, they lock it down. Nobody's around. But Doc McGee, our manager, he loves to have that scene and have hospitality and people having a good time backstage. So we still really do that and create a backstage.
But it's also because you guys are cool and you really enjoy what you do and you like to share that passion.
Yeah, that's true. But we want to make a great experience. Even the people that are the guests and they, have this whole thing and like you experienced.
I have to give Gene and Paul the credit because they've always had that culture with their fans and have maintained that even up to this point. There are certain fans that I met when I first started playing in Paul's solo band in 1989. I'm friends with some of those same people to this day. I met them from the KISS world, if you will. And I met some of the nicest, great people. Keith LaRue is a great example. A lot of them become personal friends of mine. So this band's brought a lot of other things to our lives besides just getting to play in a big band and travel the world. I've met a lot of nice people and made a lot of nice friendships and relationships from it.
But getting back to the watch thing.
So what are you wearing? And when did you get that?
This is an IWC Top Gun.
Ceramic.
And Eric's, way far beyond me on these things. But I tend to like anything, including watches that's classic looking, that's I don't like trendy stuff, because I think things like that come and go. I've always just liked things that are classic, and I know in 20, 30, 40 years it's going to be just as cool and just as easy to wear as it is now. So this is a watch, I bought it on tour. We were in South America, actually in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Eric had some good friends that had a high-end jewelry and watch store down there. And it
was at Weiss, it's Bruno, Weissman, Bruno and Stephanie.
Yeah. And so we went to their shop, and I was thinking IWC because I've always liked the way they look for some reason, and I was thinking Top Gun or what do they call it, the Big Pilot?
Big Pilot, yeah.
And anyway, they had this one, and I thought, oh, this is great, and I just loved it. So I was able just to get it then, and so I've been wearing this pretty much as my main watch for probably 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
And I'm that kind of a guy. I mean, Eric will have a million different, he'll wear something different every day,
Every
which is
day.
great, but I'm stick to one thing, and you'll see me with it pretty much all the time. So
Well, that's cool.
That's this
it's
watch.
like part of your
Yeah.
impregnated.
Well, for a long time before that, he was wearing a Tag Heuer Carrera
Carrera.
that he got when we played at the Formula One Grand Prix in Melbourne, Australia in 2008. When we went down there, Tag Heuer was nice enough for promotion. They had us wear watches. They said, just wear this for the week that you're here, and you guys can, just keep them. So he wore that for a long time until he got this one.
Yeah.
So he's basically your watch advisor. Like, do you ever buy
Totally.
a watch without him?
No, actually I do not, because Eric, some people know Eric, but if you don't, he is an aficionado on this stuff, and he seems to know more about it almost than anybody I've ever met.
I wouldn't call myself an aficionado. I just would say I'm very passionate.
But you
And
collect, and
Yeah, I
you get
collect.
interested, and you
Oh,
get
yeah.
like in the depths of things where you actually know
yeah,
what you're
but I'm
talking
not as
about.
crazy as some of the guys where I can tell you every model reference number.
You're pretty good at
do
that stuff. I mean, we'll go into a shop or we'll go to the manufacturers, and he'll actually start talking, and I get the impression he knows more than they do in most
That's
of these
probably
cases.
true,
And he was,
actually.
Eric's been at Basel, as you know, many times. He was on the board. Which
The Grand Prix,
GPHG of the Grand Prix de l'Horlogerie.
the GP
Yeah.
HG.
HG.
so he's well respected and very
But your father's
knowledgeable.
going to be a judge this year,
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
which is cool. I'm jealous because they asked me a few more times after I did it the first time, and I just never been available because of KISS, and now they didn't ask me anymore.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, I know.
What are you wearing now?
Well, today, because you asked me to switch, I was actually wearing a different watch.
It's my fault.
Eleanor asked me to, she goes, oh, why don't you wear this? I'll let you pronounce it, my Blancpain. It's a
How
G,
was that?
it's a 18 karat rose gold GMT, but it's an older version from like around 2000.
Okay. What's so special about that watch?
Well, that's my favorite brand, for
Okay.
one. So I've got
It's a very classic brand for someone who is passionate about vintage pieces and
yeah,
also.
well, I like 50 Fathoms. I'm still waiting to find, I have an old Aqualung bathyscaphe that's from the 50s, but I've always tried to find a mil spec, an original from 1953, but they're very difficult to find that's like in nice condition and not crazy through the moon pricing.
Ask your fans. They
Yeah, I
seem
know,
to
I'm
be
working
pretty
on
good
it.
at
Good
finding
idea.
stuff
I'm
for
working
you.
on it. But so that's my favorite brand. I have a bunch of 50 Fathoms, a bunch of the different
Okay.
limited or special ones that came out over the last like 5 or 8 years. The mil spec and the no radiation, all these different ones. The Hodinkee ones,
Mm-hmm.
I have both of those. And I even have the Revolution one, which was the one that came out, the bathyscaphe, the really small
Mm-hmm.
38. Kind of almost has it's unique because it has a dome crystal,
Yeah.
and it came on a brown NATO strap, but the dial is almost like a chocolatey sunburst. It's really cool looking watch, really beautiful. And then it has the Revolution logo on the rotor on the back.
course.
And so actually, when they first introduced that, Wei Ko was there, and so I ordered it when I was with him when I ordered it at Blancpain. He was there doing his thing, and they told me they were coming out with that one, so I ordered it that time. So I really love that brand because I really like it because I love the 50 Fathoms. But I like that they also do their other watches like this, for example. They do classic dress watches and traditional, if you like the more conservative look of a watch. And since I tend to like older watches, they don't do real modern funky stuff really per se. So since I like vintage, I kind of like older stuff. Like I brought a bunch of watches here today. A lot of them are vintage, some vintage.
How did you get into the watches in the first place?
My father, when I was a little kid, he liked watches. So he had a Jaeger-LeCoultre triple calendar moon phase, rectangular one with the enamel indice markers on the bezel. Really cool watch. And he had that, and he had a little Gallet micro chronometer. It was really tiny. It was the world's smallest chronograph to this day. And my dad was a band leader, so he'd use the chronograph to time the breaks for the band when they'd be on jobs. And then, so when I was a kid, I'd open the drawer and always see those cool watches, and I loved that little man on the moon phase, and I was only 5 years old, whatever. And my dad gave me my first mechanical watch. It was from Germany that he brought back from Europe. He used to travel to Europe a lot as a band leader, and so I just always liked watches since I'm a little kid, my whole life. And then I have my father's watches. Thankfully, they got preserved, and it just never ended.
But actually, it's cool how both of you, to some completely different stories, have put your fathers into your not only music path, but also watch.
Well, Tommy has a watch
passion.
story with his father. So
I know.
My dad was a retired brigadier general in the U.S. Army, and he, sadly, you know, he passed away at 96 years old just three or four years ago.
Pretty long life.
But had a really great, you know, full life. Eric knew my dad really well. But what happened we're from Oregon, Portland area, so my dad was very instrumental in getting the Oregon Military Museum built. And so we were doing a big fundraiser up in Portland.
well, it's named after, it's Tommy's
Yeah.
father's namesake, so it's the General James B. Thayer Oregon Military Museum.
Right.
So it's actually named after Tommy's dad.
He's kind of your PA.
Well, it's
Yeah, we got
important.
to-
That's
Yeah.
important
It
to
is
say.
true. It is true.
So we were doing a big fundraiser up there about 4 or 5 years ago, and we had Gene and Paul and Eric and I, KISS performed at the, not in makeup, but it was a great gala. There was 500 people there. It was super exclusive at this ballroom in Portland. You know, Alice Cooper came, Robbie Krieger from The Doors, Danny Seraphim, some of the guys from Chicago. So it was just a really spectacular night. And I was fortunate enough through Eric to meet Mr. Biver, who was in charge of Zenith
Yeah.
watches.
Well,
And-
LVMH at the
He
time.
was the chairman of the watch division at LVMH. Yeah.
Yeah, and Eric had the idea and suggestion that I talk to him about maybe doing a commemorative watch, which Mr. Biver ended up agreeing to do, which was so great, and we designed it. It was a beautiful, maybe Eric can tell you a little bit
Well,
more.
it was similar to this. It was a big
Yes,
pilot.
like a big
It was a
pilot.
Zenith big pilot. This one's obviously a chrono with a tourbillon,
Which is actually super rare to see a
Yeah, it's
tourbillon
not-
on a big pilot.
yeah, it's not that common. It has nice rose gold accents, you know, which is what I like about it. It's a unique looking watch. Anyways,
So they did a limited edition. They did 2 gold versions and looked a lot like that, and on the back face was you know, embossed with my father's
Yep.
military image, and it
it
said
was,
Oregon.
it was well, this one has the plane, like maybe a biplane.
Yeah.
On Tommy's father's watch, it had Tommy's father's face engraved on the back. And then Zenith had a representative that came up, Benoit, our friend, Benoit Voyer. He presented Tommy's dad with a gold,
With one of the gold, there was 2
solid
gold ones.
gold one.
Presented Dad with one of them, which was just wonderful, and then they did a limited edition 20 bronze versions.
Well, we auctioned off the other gold one
But the
that
other
night.
gold one, we auctioned that night, and it went for something like $20,000-$30,000.
No, it went for like almost 40.
Maybe it was
I
40.
remember who bought it. Wasn't the
Well, it
Starbucks
was-
guy?
Yeah, it was Kevin Johnson, my friend. He's the CEO of Starbucks.
Nice.
He bought it.
He bought the watch, and he still has it. So
You can tell your friend he makes amazing matcha lattes.
yes, I'll pass this on, Kevin, if you're watching. Check it out. But Kevin was there, you know, great friend, and he bought the other gold one at the auction. And so it's just, you know, it was a phenomenal thing that they did. Zenith, Mr. Biver, they really stepped up and did a lot of nice things. And it was really fun kind of putting that watch together and designing it and coming up with the idea, and with their team that, you know, we were going back and forth
putting
with
together.
with the designs and the look and the whole style of it. And then they put together this beautiful presentation box that it all comes in with a booklet and a vintage American flag to commemorate my dad's heroic
Very sweet.
military service. I can't remember exactly where we got them, but they were vintage, these small size vintage U.S. flags, and so each box had one of the flags. And it was just, you know, fantastic. And, you know, my dad really was a great man. He was a very successful business and civic leader in Portland, but he was also, you know, a great military guy. And in World War II, he was in France and Germany and Austria leading a platoon. He was a young second lieutenant. He was leading a platoon through France and into Germany and then into Austria. And the Germans were retreating at that time. It was in spring of 1945. And anyway, his platoon, with him leading, they discovered and liberated a Nazi death camp in Austria. It was called Gunskirk, and it was a satellite camp of Mauthausen, which was a huge, bigger camp in Austria. So, you know, he was, you know, really recognized for that, and he received the Silver Star and the Bronze Star in the Army. So he was well decorated and just, you know, a fantastic guy. But just having that watch done to commemorate his service and the things he's done
It's a
was
legacy that's super, and you can
Yeah.
pass on
Yeah.
from one generation
Yeah.
to another, maybe to your daughter to
Yeah.
some extent
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah, so it was just an amazing thing, and I was just so happy the way everything turned out, and Zenith did an amazing job, and Eric, of course, really was the instrumental in putting that together too. So
Well, anytime I can do something with watches, I'm in.
Well, next thing you know, you're going to apply for a job when you retire from KISS because you want to.
Yeah, we mentioned that earlier, if I remember. That's another plug.
Do you have a couple of brands that you want to dive to, like?
You know, I am not completely biased of only one brand. I love watches in general, but there's certain brands I have an affinity for, obviously, like Blancpain. I love Zenith. Tag Heuer, because I always collected Heuer chronographs.
You have a very cool Heuer chronograph, like
yeah, a couple of them. I brought a couple.
Rare as well.
Well, this one is like an early '70s, you know, chronomatic with the automatic movement, with the crown on the left and the pushers on the right. But this one's all the examples I collect. I try to find nice, like super clean examples, because that's where, and that haven't been polished or messed up. This one's cool because it has almost like blue on the outer bezel, and the chronograph registers are kind of like a grayish blue, slate blue. They're cool.
It's like a big brother. Does he sometimes let you borrow his watches?
No, but I haven't asked him to either, because I don't want to screw anything up.
Yeah, like your friend that almost knocked him over. And then this one, here's another Heuer that I brought. This one was interesting because
the original case.
Well, I had this case. I just put it in there because it looks nice. But this is this was the first execution, as they call it, of a Heuer Carrera. So it has the white dial. Normally they have silver dials or black dials. The dial's actually, like they call it, eggshell, like off-white. That's a white dial, first version. So that's really rare. And this one, you can see the condition of that. This
almost pristine.
This thing's super clean condition.
And how many did you?
I think I think when I researched, when I bought it, I didn't really know what it was. I just knew it was an old Carrera. Then I started looking more and more. Something's wrong. Doesn't have the notches in the back. Then I realized, the more I researched it, because it had an unmarked crown, and then I realized the original version, this is it. And then I realized, oh, you've got the most rarest one of all. It's the first execution. They only made 200 or 300 in that eggshell white dial. And the fact that it's so clean, so it was very hard for me. I spent a lot of hours researching, going down the rabbit hole, as they say, into forums and stuff. That's what you have to do if you really want to gain the knowledge and information. Then I discovered this wasn't just any old, ordinary Carrera. It was like the most desirable one of any, probably the most desirable.
Generally speaking, you're on the hunt of like getting a specific reference, a specific history of a piece that you'd like to.
Well, I tried to find out once I get it, because like I said, I just knew it was a Carrera. I just knew generically that it was a Heuer Carrera. Didn't realize all the minutia between the different models. You know, I have another Octavia, which was like the second execution. That's really rare as well. I bought that years ago for nothing, and now I see what these watches go for. On the secondhand market, you know, I only bought them because I liked them.
Yeah, it's like the story of your AP that you got for pretty much nothing.
Yeah, this AP I bought like 22 years ago at a Watches of Switzerland store in Toronto, and the guy had told me a bunch of watches had been stolen, but they reconfiscated them, and they lost the boxes and paper, so they couldn't sell them, even though it was brand new and never worn. So everything was 50% off. So I bought that watch for like, I think it was like $4,200 US, and it was a special. It's an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, but it's called a Time for Trees Foundation watch, and it says Foundation on the dial. They made there was only 250 of them made. The next version they made of a Foundation Time for Trees, they made 450, and that had like a design of an oak tree on the dial and on the rotor. This one has a little bit of oak tree on the rotor. If you look, you can see the oak tree on the gold rotor.
You say on the gold rotor.
Yeah, so it has a display back, and these old ones used to have Jaeger movements in them, which a lot of people may or may not know.
Is there any watch that he made you buy that you were not thinking of buying at all, and just because of the history and the education that he gave to you, you actually ended up getting the watch?
You know, one time we were in Australia. I think we were in the Gold Coast. This is way back.
Oh, the Cartiers?
And the exchange rate was really favorable for the U.S. dollar.
2 to 1.
So we found these Cartier watches, and I didn't know anything about watches at that point. And Eric goes, "Oh, you know, let's check this out." And anyway, ended up buying one of them, and I think it was just an incredible deal. I don't remember exactly.
No, you bought I remember. I bought a Santos Ronde, which was round, which is not common at all. It was a round stainless steel, and Tommy bought regular Santos, the like
Tank?
the square one.
Is it
like
called?
tank style,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The Santos. You bought the traditional Santos
Yeah.
Cartier model, and
Anyway.
we both bought Cartier watches together at that time, and there's a few times. Remember in Vampe Jewelers in Spain, we bought a
Yeah.
bunch of watches that time. We bought
Yeah.
Daca Panerai,
Yeah.
and I bought
And he
myself.
still wears.
He does.
Well, he bought a different. That was a different Panerai. I bought myself a. This is how good the deals were then. I bought a Daytona, stainless steel Daytona from this store, and they even gave me a discount, which is unheard of nowadays. We bought Paul Stanley and Doc McGee each bought rose gold Daytonas, and I bought a stainless steel Daytona. I paid $7,200 US for that. $7,200.
Here's a great one though. We were in Russia on tour about 10 or 12 years ago. We were in Moscow. We had a day off and we were kind of hanging out. Doc had some friends. Our manager Doc had some friends that he knew there that came over, and this guy shows up, and he's a younger guy, well-to-do. He's like a Russian oligarch kind of guy, and he's got some fancy watch on. And Eric, of course, anytime Eric sees a watch, he goes, "Oh, what's that? Let me see."
It's the open
Yep.
statement. to
Yeah,
start a
totally. I mean,
conversation.
he always does that. So the guy takes the watch off and he goes, "Oh, here, it's you want to check it out?" And Eric goes, "Yeah." And Eric's like fiddling with it, and then the guy goes, "Hey, you like that? And you like that watch?" And Eric goes, "Yeah, I really like it." And he goes, "Well, you can have it." And Eric's like, "Oh my God!" And Doc and Paul Stanley are standing there like, "What?
What just happened?
What happened?
Yeah, it was an Arnold.
How come you
it
didn't
was
show it to
Arnold
me?"
and Son.
Oh,
Speaking
okay.
of
Independent and-
independence,
and
it was Arnold and Son
okay.
called True North Perpetual,
Okay.
and it was in white gold with a black dial, really cool.
And you knew the brand from before?
I'd heard of it, but I didn't know this particular model.
So
Okay.
about as soon as he could, 5 minutes later, Eric darts off out of the room. I go, "Where's he going?" And Eric he went up to his room to Google it to see what it was.
To find out more about it, and then
It was like an $80,000 watch or something.
at that time the retail was about 80, I think like 87 or 89, almost $90,000 US was the retail.
That was just crazy,
And,
though.
Did you ever pay that much for a watch?
No, the most expensive.
And you own more than 300 watches.
Yeah, I got a lot of watches, but I think the most. I mean, I bought a Royal Oak offshore diver, but I bought it before everything went crazy. The watch prices. I mean, unfortunately, sadly, a lot of the brands have priced themselves out for a lot of buyers, and I think someday maybe they don't care and they just figure, well, we have buyers and that's all that matters. But for a lot of people, they can't buy the watches that they always wish they could. And not only can they not get them because they might be able to buy it even if they had the money, you can't get a lot of the watches.
That's true.
Like I got this Sky Dweller, Rolex Sky Dweller in the blue dial, which is very
Super
difficult to
blue,
get on a Jubilee. I've had friends when I got this, I got it earlier this year. My friend who's a big watch collector, he's a lawyer in Miami, he goes, "How'd you get that?" He goes, "I've been waiting 5 years for my white dial one." I go, "I just called my friend up, he's a distributor and he had it." I mean, he was so mad that I was able to get it just by calling up, but the guy just happened to have one.
It's just about timing sometimes.
But the thing is, the fact that I could just pay retail is nowadays, the fact that you can buy one and pay retail is considered you're lucky because you can't even get the
It's making
watches.
sense.
It's crazy how it's changed. So I wish it hadn't gone that way. But the good thing is, if you don't want to play that game with AP and Richard Mille or Rolex, the stuff that's been really hot the last few years, then you can just go to, like I have this Oris, which this was a special edition made for Topper Jewelers in Burlingame, which is like San Francisco area. I do too, because I like watches with no date.
And you also like bronze watches, and the last Big Crown Pilot that came out earlier this spring
Yep.
has 4 different versions with different color dyes, like lacquer dye. They're
Yep.
super cool. And the patina doesn't wear off too much, so that it's actually really cool looking.
Yeah, I know they did the one with the full-on bracelet in bronze
Yeah.
as well.
It's this one.
It's pretty cool.
I'm talking about.
Is that the one you're talking about? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very cool. They're really nice. But I like Oris. I think Oris is a nice kind of I don't want to say it's not an entry level, but it's a nice kind
It's
of
very affordable and super
It's an
cool watches.
right, and it seems like it skews more for younger guys. Say 20s to 30-year-old, 40-year-old guys will like an Oris. I think it's a great everyday watch. It's a good quality watch, but I like this because it's retro looking. I like those 60s dive watch look, and that's what this is. So.
But that's also why you also enjoy a lot of vintage watches.
Oh, I love vintage watches. Like this Zenith I wore today. That's from 1969. I think it's called a Subsea. That And now I noticed they just came out with another
bracelet.
El Primero with this, I think they call it a ladder bracelet. They just came out with a watch, reintroduced this bracelet again.
Because a lot of brands are putting back like heritage.
Yeah,
and,
retro. They're going
and retro details into the new
like
pieces.
I'll let you say. How do you say it, Ulysse?
Ulysse Nardin.
Ulysse Nardin. Anyways, that was their diver. It was called, I think they called Le Loc. How do you say it?
Le Loc.
Yeah, that's the model diver. I loved it when it first came out. Some people didn't like it because they didn't like the aluminum bezel. They didn't like that it wasn't a screw down back, case back, but I don't care. I just loved the way it looked with the sailcloth strap and everything. I love this
they're
watch.
changing a lot of things right now, especially with the sustainability and working on like economic material and recycled thing. It's really cool what they're doing.
Oh yeah, I know. They've always, with that, like the Freak was always a
the Freak
kind
is
of
amazing.
a very
Yeah.
advanced kind of using
Not a
advanced.
lot of people understand how, like the power and the interest about that watch.
Well, the thing is, they introduced a lot of using synthetics and different types of materials for the watch movement parts. They were always one that at the forefront of that. And I think a lot of brands do what they initiated with the escapement, silicon escapement, and stuff like that.
The first one to do it.
And there's
And the Hublot, that's how I met you. You
That's
were
how we
both
met.
wearing a Hublot.
Yeah. Well, I like this brand because that's how I met. I ended up going to Basel because of that, and meeting Jean-Claude Biver because of Rick Delacroix. I met Rick in Lacroix in 2008, and Rick has always been really nice. In fact, he gave me this as a gift from Bomberg, his watch brand. It's a sterling silver little gun. I had got some of his friends into the show in Perth, and Rick just had them bring this to me as a gift, unbeknown to me. So thanks, Rick. He's always been really cool and very great to the band and me individually.
He loves music too.
So I think that was that 2015? I hate to think that it was, but
Which one?
When you and I went to Basel.
6 years ago.
No. I think it was,
I think it was
2015. Believe it or not.
It was the 10th anniversary of
16.
the Big Bang.
So
Right.
it's
So
2015.
Hublot did I know I didn't say that right, but they had a party to commemorate the 10th year of the Big Bang, correct?
Yes.
And so Rick Delacroix,
Delacroix.
he invited Eric to come to the party and put together a kind of an all-star band to do a performance at this party, and that's where we met.
Yeah, that's where we met.
So Eric put the band together. We went over there. We had a great time. We had Jack Blades and Sebastian Bach, and
It was a really fun night.
it was fun.
Yeah.
So we rocked out, and then at the end of the night, the cool thing was they presented us with our own Hublot
Yeah.
Big
From
Bang watches.
Ricardo Guadalupe, and the funny thing is, like, this is the Kobe Bryant Black Mamba, and I'm a huge basketball fan, and Kobe was always my favorite player. The funny story about this, because for those that don't know, that was a limited edition. Well, aren't they all? 250 pieces, but it came with one of.
Said that, I didn't.
It came with a Kobe. Well, that's the way it is. A Kobe Bryant basketball shoe signed by Kobe, which makes it very desirable. Anyways. Rick knew I wanted this watch, and we were at Basel, one of the shows, I think, one of the dinners at Three Kings restaurant downstairs. And Ricardo, who's always really cool, Ricardo Guadalupe, the CEO, they wanted me to get up and play, and I didn't want to get, sometimes I could be shy about that kind of stuff.
Sure. Especially if you don't know what exactly you're going to do.
And a lot of times I'd like to just be there and be a spectator and be a regular person like everyone else.
That's true. Instead of having to be on like, oh, we got to get up and perform.
And
It's kind of like people are expecting you because you're a rock band.
And I didn't want to get in place, so Rick, Rick and Ricardo really like to enjoy themselves, as we know. And Rick said, if you get up and play, I'll give you that Kobe Bryant watch.
So of course he got up.
So you got all the lights going off and it's like,
Rick and Ricardo, and I didn't get the watch till a year later.
So you had to work for that one.
I had to work for that, but I didn't get it till a year later. It took a year because it was a very hard watch to get, and but eventually I did get it. And like I said, I've had a long-standing relationship with the brand and Rick because of him. He introduced me to him. I met Mr. Biver at their booth years ago, and he was always really nice and generous to us, and he's been always really cool. So I got to meet a lot of nice people, and some of the heavyweights, and he's a heavyweight in the watch world, as we know.
he's about to come up with his own brand.
I remember I spent 2 hours with him one day just talking about everything, and he said to me, he goes, I have one of the biggest Patek Philippe collections, privately owned Patek Philippe collections. I mean, what I was impressed was he's a fan. He loves watches, and he's done a lot of great things for a lot of brands besides Hublot and Zenith, LVMH brands. But he owned Blancpain at one time before he sold it. He revived them and saved, helped save them. He's been a real ambassador for the Swiss watch industry, no doubt about it. And but at the core, he's a watch fan, and he has that passion. And you can tell when you talk to him, just sitting one-on-one.
He also has a vision of what's going to come next. Maybe your next watch is going to be one of his to complete the collection.
You never know. I mean, he seems to always have. He's always had a good. He's got instincts, as they say, and you can't learn that. That's something you either got it or you don't.
Guts.
Yeah, he's got that thing, and I'd say they would do well to listen to him.
So I guess if I have a final question, we usually pair wine with food, but how about pairing wine with watches? Did you ever think about doing this?
No, but let's do it.
So for the next interview, we'll take 10 watches, and I'm saying that in front of the camera, and then you will choose the watches, you will choose the wine, and then we'll do a tasting together. So I guess now, on top of your head, with which one would you pair
This
that
watch? This watch, my IWC Top Gun, is a lot like a really nice Pinot Noir.
Okay.
For some reason, it's a little understated. It's not like the big flamboyant watch. It's just cool. And that's, to me, what a nice Pinot Noir is, just kind of a nice, earthy, not too outrageous. It's just a nice wine to sip and drink with a nice meal.
This would be champagne.
Yes.
How do you say it? Vive Clicquot?
Veuve Clicquot.
It would be that.
Okay, it would be very clear. It wouldn't be like a Ruinart Blanc de Blanc, for example.
I don't know. I don't even know what you're talking about.
And then your Hublot, the Big Bang, I think that's more of that would pair well with a big red, big Cabernet.
And what about mine?
I would say
Chardonnay.
Boone's Farm. Boone's Farm strawberry. Strawberry Boone's Farm.
No, I think that's a nice Chardonnay right there. Because a lot of the ladies like a nice, big, oaky, buttery Chardonnay, and that's just,
but I would, what would be a wine that would be more of a, kind of an everyday dinner table wine?
Well, are you talking white or red?
White.
Well, a Chardonnay or maybe a Sauv Blanc.
I'd say that would be fine.
I like your little Sauv Blanc.
Well, and if I don't drink wine?
If you don't drink wine, then club soda.
With a little bit of lemon.
Yeah.
Make it a little bit more exciting.
Make it a little more,
Yeah, that would be for Schweppes.
No, it's sweet. Schweppes is sweet.
Club soda?
No, the club soda is just club soda.
Oh, you're thinking of ginger ale.
Yes.
No, I'm just thinking of Pellegrino.
Oh, okay, Pellegrino. S. Pellegrino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
S. Pellegrino
Actually,
with So Blanc.
well, that's what it is. It's S. Pellegrino. Or my favorite sparkling water is Gerald Steiner.
I don't know
The
that
German
one.
one. It's heavily carbonated. I loved a lot of bubbles. Yeah.
Now we're getting into
Gerald
water.
Stein. Oh,
Where's this going?
That's all I
Wait
drink.
a minute,
Because that's all I drink. I don't drink soda pop or anything. I drink coffee
Well,
and
you
then I
drink
drink
some
wine.
wine.
Well, I drink wine.
He drinks champagne. He's like a little girl walking
then
around. So
I love the taste of champagne.
Occasionally, Eric will have one of my specialty tequila drinks.
Tommy makes a special. What do you call it? A Tommy.
It's a skinny margarita, but it's a Tommy Rita, of
Yeah.
course.
Pomerita.
But he makes one. In fact,
he
Maybe
likes
I'll get one tonight.
But
Maybe I'll make an exception to the
okay.
We'll
rule.
get one and you can taste it.
Okay, here's the thing: is whenever we order it, I have to have him order it for me because I don't know how to order it.
That's right, because
I
it's
feel like
kind
I'm
of
his girlfriend for a minute. But seriously, I have to say to Tommy, I go, yeah, I want whatever he's having. I go, Tommy, can you tell him what it is? Because I don't even know how to order it.
That's
I'm
true.
true. I'm being honest.
I'll take
And so-
over on that cocktail order.
Okay.
He'll take over on the watches.
And then Tommy go, okay, he
And
wants
then whenever
a
he's gonna
margarita. What do you put,
drink
Contro in
champagne,
it?
You're gonna get the desserts.
Cointreau, yeah.
And what dessert do you get with your champagne? Because usually you have strawberry and chocolate.
No, my favorite is actually would be key lime pie.
Huh? You know how to make it?
No, but it has to be from Florida. Key lime pie is from the Florida Keys. The limes are from that region. Just like in Italy, you have blood oranges. There's certain things that are indigenous to a specific region of the world. That's what makes it unique.
I think for dessert, I'd like a chocolate souffle.
Huh? I know how to make a really good one.
You do?
Hey.
Yep.
We'll have
So
to-
guys, next time you're in Geneva or anywhere close to a kitchen, we'll get club soda, we'll get Tommy
Tommy Rita.
Tamarita.
We'll get wine, we'll get champagne, we'll get watches, and it's going to be the fun night, I think.
We'll have
You
everything.
know, you should
all
think
bases
about with
covered.
Revolution, why don't you do, you should plan a dinner sometime where you do a wine and watches.
I mean, that's a fantastic idea. When are you guys coming next to Europe?
Well, we can't quite say, but it might
So
happen.
stay tuned.
Stay
Well,
tuned.
okay, so this is to be continued.
Yes.
Perfect. Then it is. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.